Feels good to mingle with these laid-back country folk, don't it, Harry?
I like it a lot.
Well, again, not to pile on Mr. O'Reilly, but his war on the imaginary war on Christmas has gotten a bit stale for my liking. Okay, now for my perspective as an atheist, I put up with Christmas mainly because it has become such an important part of family. Memories of Christmas for me are special, and maybe not as special as I've got older and wiser to the real meaning of the holidays these days. It seems though corporations have stolen the true spirit of the holiday with a constant bombardment of advertisements that, through either subliminal or downright obvious attempts to make Christmas about giving, not in the heart but the wallet. All starting with Black Friday, an easy way for them to dump the trash they could never sell all year and have consumers think they've gotten a great deal. All the while, the holidays have seemingly been less to do about the birth of Jesus and more about traditions either stolen from other cultures and tales that make Bible stories seem not as crazy after all. I mean, we're talking about Frosty, the snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Santa Claus here. I mean, is it that far of a stretch to have Jonas and the Whale and the Talking Snake? I'm not sure. Anyway, what bothers me the most about the holiday is that unlike other celebrations of important people like Lincoln, Washington, Martin Luther King, events like our independence and taking a day to honor our veterans, Christmas rates nearly a whole month. While I don't disagree that Jesus of Nazareth was a real person, the story of his life definitely in question though. As with Lincoln, Washington, and King, we have actual first-hand documentation. Celebrations of his birthday, though, are for more than one day seem a bit of an overkill.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Now, as for the billboard that Mr. O'Reilly took offense to, it reads, "Dear Santa, all I want for Christmas is to skip church. I'm too old for fairy tales." While, yes, this is taking advantage of the time of year that all religious people hold very dear, it is not just an attack during Christmas. It happens all year round. The media just chooses not to give atheists the publicity during these times when they would come off as not as offensive. Oh, by the way, if you see the sign, it is an advertisement for the National Convention for Atheists. It happens in April, not during Christmas. Atheists truly had wanted to use Christmas as a platform for their views, wouldn't they have had this convention, say, on Christmas Day instead of the first week of April? Oh yes, this is also coinciding with the death of Jesus. Well, let's just see how much media attention that receives from Fox. The thing here is this: the perception that agnostics and atheists hate Christmas is a misconception. We don't understand why religious people don't walk the walk, not just during Christmas, but all year round. And we definitely can't understand why people like Mr. Murdoch, whom is Fox News, are worried that when the inevitable happens, that man finally evolves into a truly civilized being that no longer needs to rely on old customs and beliefs that science has explained hundreds of times over, and the percentage of those who don't believe become the majority. That means the war on Christmas will have been won by the atheist. No, only the real meaning of Jesus being of such importance to our world in a realistic viewpoint of his accomplishments that have been exaggerated to a status of impossible events will now be celebrated just on a single day, not a whole month. And maybe not as much judgment being laid upon those who know there is no God, and still even less judgment on those who choose to believe otherwise. It just so happens that this particular holiday may be the very straw that stirs the powers of those whom use religion for control by brainwashing us early as children, equating toys with Santa, and then as we grow older and stop believing in Santa, learning Christ is the reason for the season, and still subconsciously still equating getting stuff with Jesus, and does believe in his words that he's the Son of God. Can't say God, a God, but I do believe that he said just that. He didn't say Son of God. I bet he said that of a God. But that can't be disputed because we have no first-hand witnesses, of course. We'll just use what the CIA did as torture on terrorists to obtain information and realize many experts feel that giving them stuff would have worked better, and use that with why religion and Old Testament is followed by fewer and fewer, and why the New Testament thrives. Well, really. No, Bill, there is no real war on Christmas, only wars that are being fought because of the birth of our Savior, whom in the end was just a man, a smart man, yes, but just a man, and like our politicians, was real good at exploiting the weak and having one very good public relations office.
Don't, ever call me
Very
stupid.
much buy these Hummers. How much is it?
52,000.
I am looking for something between 600 to 650.
One last commentary here, and it might be the most important commentary I've made so far in any of my shows. And this is a burning issue that really disgusts me. Today marks the day we passed a budget to avert a government shutdown. What we basically did was, as Democrats, averted a Republican bill that would have been even worse. And therefore, a moral victory at best by the Democrats today. President Obama publicly approved of this bill. Privately, I'm sure he disapproved of it, but he got some things in it that he hopes down the line will avert a future disaster. There are parts of the bill that are designed to make it easier for unions to organize and harder for companies to delay that organization. So that's good. And what's bad about this bill? Among the controversies is a rollback of the Dodd-Frank financial market regulatory overhaul. Banks have lobbied to get rid of this provision, requiring them to push out derivatives trading. I'm sure some of you are aware that derivatives were a big part of the bubble burst of the housing situation that we had to bail the banks out over. I'm going to be reading here from a conversation on NPR. I just picked out a part of it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is the part that I think you should listen to. Give you a little brief biography of the main discussion panelist here of the NPR argument, John Ydstie. Last name spelled Y-D-S-T-I-E. Pronounce that. I don't know. So I'm going to go with John Y, if you don't mind. John Y has covered the economy, Wall Street, and the federal budget for the NPR for 2 decades. In recent years, the NPR has broadened his responsibilities, making use of his reporting and interviewing skills to cover major stories such as the aftermath, 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, and Jack Ambroff's lobbying scandal. His current focus is reporting on the global financial crisis. John Y. is also a regular guest host on the NPR news programs, Morning Edition, All Things Considered, Weekend Edition, and Talk of the Nation. The host is Ollie Cornish, another interviewer of the NPR station. We take it from here. Cornish. So this proposed rollback in the legislation we see now, how would it change that? He's referring to Dodd-Frank. John Y. Well, under Dodd-Frank, those risky transactions were to be pushed out into affiliates of the banks that didn't have any government safety net. In other words, banks that could not be bailed out. He goes on to say the bank hates this provision. They say it's too complex and unworkable, and they've been lobbying to repeal it. And they managed to get the language that does this into this very bill. The bill was just passed. Cornish, and that's led the Senator Elizabeth Warren being at the forefront of leading opposition to it. Is that right, John Y? Right. She said on the floor of the Senate yesterday that repealing the so-called push-out rule would allow Wall Street to gamble with taxpayers' money once again, and if something went wrong, get bailed out by the government again. But there are some Democrats and prominent reformers like Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker who have actually supported the rollback. Cornish, so help us understand, what's the argument made by Volcker and that group? John Y. Well, they agree with the banks that the push-out rule does complicate the regulatory framework, and they say another provision of Dodd-Frank called the Volcker rule largely takes care of this problem. It prohibits banks from using federally insured deposits to make investments with the bank's own proprietary accounts, and that would include derivatives like credit default swaps. They also say pushing these transactions out of the bank means they would be less regulated. Credit default swaps, by the way, were the main reasons for the crash. Cornish, meanwhile, they're tearing this with this huge omnibus bill with the government shutdown threat looming. It seems bound to create a serious pushback, right? John, why? Well, you're right, and actually former Congressman Barney Frank, one of the main authors of the Dodd-Frank, made that point. In the past, he supported changing the derivatives rule, derivatives rule, by putting an issue as complex as this into a huge spending bill is a huge mistake, he says. He says it would be a frightening precedent and a roadmap for others who want to repeal financial protections. Cornish, so let me map out the players here. Democrats negotiated this deal along with the Republican congressional leaders and the White House has said the president would like to sign it. So we've got Democrats here taking opposite positions on this bill. John Wise says, yes, absolutely. What you've got here is a split between centrist Democrats and the populists like